You can start. Okay.
When the nurse brought in a bed on wheel, Prabhupada said he wanted Garga Muni to push it. He then sat on it cross-legged and put his hand in his bead bag, and Garga Muni, following the nurse, wheeled him out the door, down the hall, and onto the elevator. They went down to the third floor and entered a room. The nurse left them alone. Garga Muni could sense Prabhupada's uneasiness. He was alone. He was also nervous. It was such an unlikely place for him to be with his spiritual master. Then a different nurse entered with a needle. Time to give the Swami a little injection. No, Prabhupada shook his head. I'm sorry, Garga Muni said flatly. We are not going to do it. The nurse was exasperated, but smiled. I won't hurt. Take me back. Prabhupada ordered Garga Muni. When the nurse insisted, Garga Muni acted rashly, his usual tendency, and stepped between the nurse and Srila Prabhupada. I am ready to fight if I have to, Garga Muni thought. I won't let you do it, he said, and wheeled the bed out of the room, leaving the nurse behind. Garga Muni was lost. He was somewhere on the third or fourth floor, faced with corridors and doors. And Prabhupada's room was on the sixth floor. Unsure where he was going, Garga Muni wheeled through the corridors with Prabhupada sitting cross-legged, chanting on his beads. Brahmananda arrived at the X-ray lab seconds after Garga Muni's escape. The nurse and an intern complained to him about what had happened. Brahmananda. They considered this a theft. Swamiji was their property. As long as he was in the hospital, he was theirs to do whatever they pleased with. Garga Muni had stolen Swamiji away from them. Garga Muni got to the elevator. He had difficulty maneuvering the bed and in his haste bumped into the wall. He forgot what floor Swamiji was on. He only knew that he was protecting Swamiji, who wanted to be taken away. When Garga Muni finally reached Prabhupada's room 607, an intern was there and spoke angrily. I don't care, Garga Muni said. He doesn't want any more needles or tests. He wants to live. Brahmananda arrived, calmed his younger brother, and helped Prabhupada back into bed. Prabhupada said he wanted to live. When the doctor came in, Prabhupada sat up and spoke decisively. Doctor, I am all right. I can go. And he shook the doctor's hand to show him he was hell and hearty. The doctor chuckled. He said that although Swamiji was getting stronger, he would have to stay a few more days. He was by no means out of danger yet. He required careful medical surveillance. They needed to run another electroencephalogram. Srila Prabhupada still had pains around his heart, but he told the doctor his boys had a place for him to rest by the seaside. This was very good, the doctor said, but he couldn't let his patient go just yet. But Prabhupada had made up his mind. Brahmananda and Garga Muni arranged for a rented car. They gathered Prabhupada's things and helped him dress. As they escorted him out of his room, and the hospital staff saw that the boys were actually taking the old man away, some of the doctors and nurses tried to stop them. Brahmananda told them not to worry. Swamiji was very dear to them and they would take good care of him. He would get regular massages and plenty of rest, and they would get him whatever medicines the doctor prescribes. After a rest by the seaside, he could come back for a checkup. Brahmananda. Then the doctor becomes fed up. They threatened us. This man is going to die. They really scared us. They said, this man is going to die and it is going to be your fault. Even as we left, they said, this man is condemned to death. It was horrible. At 10 a.m. on June 8, they left the hospital. Prabhupada wanted to stop briefly at the temple at 26 2nd Avenue before going to the house in Long Branch. Entering the storefront, walking shakily, he came before the portraits of his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and his spiritual master's father, Bhakti Vinoda Thakur. For the first time, Prabhupada's disciples saw him offer fully prostrated obeisances. As he prostrated himself before his Guru Maharaj, his disciples also paid obeisances and felt their devotion increase. When Prabhupada arrived at his cottage in Long Branch at 1 o'clock, he had Kirtananda immediately began cooking lunch. It would be Prabhupada's first regular hot meal, rice, dal, chapati, sabji, since his stroke 9 days ago. Prabhupada went to bed, but soon got up and came into the kitchen asking, it is ready? Kirtananda made a few excuses and said he would hurry. After a few minutes, Prabhupada returned. He seemed furious. Why are you taking so long? Kirtananda moved as quickly as he could, but he couldn't make the dal boil any faster. Whatever you have, Prabhupada said, let me eat it. I don't care if it is raw. Kirtananda served lunch. The Prabhupada ate with the relish of a person in good health. Kirtananda telephoned his pal Hayagriva in San Francisco. He ate like anything. It was wonderful to see. The small one-story cottage was situated in a quiet suburb, a short walk from the beach. The backyard was enclosed by trees and shrubs, and the neighborhood bloomed with fragrant roses. But the weather was often blustery and the sky gray. Prabhupada spoke to returning to India to recuperate it. In Delhi, Sri Krishna Pandit had refused Prabhupada's urgent request to Ayurvedic medicine. You are in such a long place. If the medicine gives some bad reaction, then how to arrange for the good? Prabhupada had written back asking if an Ayurvedic physician could be sent to America, but the proposal seemed impractical. It would be better for Prabhupada to go to India. He received Swami Narayana Maharaja's reply that since no Ayurvedic doctor would go to America, come and treated in Calcutta. Narayana Maharaj also enclosed a letter to Prabhupada's secretary, Rai Ram. There is no need for anxiety. Always utter Hari Nam, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, near his ears. God will do for the best. Srila Prabhupada talked of going to India not only for his health. He told Kirtanananda and Gaur Sundar he wanted to start in Vrindavan an American house, a place where his American disciples could learn Vedic culture to help them preach all over the world. He also said he wanted to make some of his disciples, Kirtanananda, Brahmananda, Haigrava, into sannyasis, and he would do that also in India. His real work, however, was in America. If he could just regain his health, but where was the sunshine? Govinda Dasi had cherished the desire to serve Swamiji personally ever since she had first met him in San Francisco. She saw that he was selfless and his love for his disciples was unlike anything she had ever known before. She didn't mention her cherished desire to anyone, even to Gaur Sundara. But now Krishna was fulfilling her desire by allowing her and Gaur Sundar to come to New Jersey to serve Swamiji. To the devotees in New York, having a married couple take care of Swamiji seemed the best arrangement. And Govinda Dasi and Gaur Sundar had been available. These were external reasons, but Govinda Dasi understood that Krishna was fulfilling her desires. Serving Swamiji, Govinda Dasi felt completely satisfied. Now that she was actually dedicating herself to Swamiji as she had always wanted, nothing else was on her mind. Despite the problems of working with Kirtanananda, who seemed to think she was less intelligent because she was a woman and who sometimes corrected her, she was happy. Govinda Dasi, Swamiji would sit on a little couch with a table before him, and Gaur Sundara and Kirtanananda and I would sit on the floor, and we would all eat together like a family. We would talk, and one time the subject was rice. Kirtanananda said, white rice is for human beings and brown rice is for animals. So I said, I must be an animal then, because I really like brown rice better. And Swamiji just laughed and laughed and laughed. He thought it was so funny. I guess it did sound pretty simple, but he laughed and laughed. Prabhupada was sitting in the backyard when Govinda Dasi saw a large slug climbing on a wall. She showed it to Prabhupada, chant to the poor thing. He said, and she began to chant Hare Krishna. Govinda Dasi would take walks daily and with the neighbor's permission, pick dozens of roses. On returning, she would arrange them in vases and place them all around in Prabhupada's room. One time when Prabhupada heard her loudly singing Hare Krishna as she returned from the neighborhood, he remarked to Gaur Sundara, she is very simple-hearted. Govinda Dasi, Swamiji talked about Krishna in such a way that Krishna was present in the room. This was so striking to me. He would talk about Krishna's activities, about how Krishna is doing this and that, and how Krishna is so wonderful and Mother Yashoda is thinking like this. He would talk, he would get into such a beautiful state that the whole room would glow golden. I would feel as if I were being transported to some other realm. And it was all very new to me. I didn't have any great understanding of what was going on, but it was all very new to me. And it was an actual transcendental experience of feeling Krishna's presence and almost glimpsing within the heart the memory of his pastimes. Swamiji playing kartalas, Swamiji walking on the beach, Swamiji sitting in his room or taking a nap. Everything he did seemed wonderful to Govinda Dasi, and everything he did or said seemed to endear him more and more to her. Devotees would travel no more than 2 at a time and only once a week from Manhattan to Long Branch to visit Swamiji. Mostly they would see him sitting on his bed, but sometimes they would walk with him on the beach. The morning sunshine, he said, would help him, but the gray skies persisted. As Prabhupada sat one morning with Kirtanananda, Gaur Sundar, Satsvarupa, Govinda Dasi and Jadurani on the blanket spread on the sand, he noticed some boys with surfboards trying to ride the waves. They think this is bliss, playing in the water. He said, actually there is some bliss there, but it is not Ananda, the bliss of the spiritual world. Oh, on Krishna Loka, everything is conscious. The water is conscious, the land is conscious, and everything is blissful. Here, that is not so. Devotee looked away, bobbing in the sea. Kirtanananda said, and also here it is dangerous. At any moment, one of the surfboards could jump up and hit them on the head. Yes, Srila Prabhupada said, this is not real Anand. Prahlad Maharaj has has said that this material world is crushing him like a grinding wheel of repeated birth and death. He says that in a material life, he experiences either separation from what is beloved to him or meeting up with an obstacle he doesn't want. And in order to combat this condition, the remedy he takes is even worse than the disease. LSD is like that, and a remedy worse than disease. Except that Prabhupada's face looked him, his appearance was the same as before his illness. He sat among them, wrapped in a grey wool chadar. They knew he must be very careful about how much he did. They would never forget, as they had forgotten before, that he was 72 years old. Perhaps never again would they be able to enjoy spending as much time with him as before. Certainly for now, his intimate association had become a rare treasure. Sitting inches away from Prabhupada on the beach blanket, Sattva Rupa asked a question on behalf of the devotees in New York. Swamiji, is wearing of leather shoes permissible? No. What if someone has given us some leather shoes? Leather means violence, Prabhupada said. He pointed to Sattva Rupa's shoes of inexpensive man-made material. Your country is very nice. By your technology, you can get these shoes easily without wearing leather. For Sattva Rupa and the others, the question was answered for a lifetime, and the time and place become a reference, like a chapter and verse number in the scriptures. As Jaddu Rani helped Govinda Dasi gather flowers, the two girls talked together. Both had heard the men say that women were less intelligent, and they felt discouraged. Later, Govinda Dasi told Prabhupada about the problem. It is true, she asked, that because we are women, we won't make advancement as quickly as the brahmacharis? Yes, Prabhupada answered. If you think that yourself as woman, how will you make any advancement? You must see yourself as spirit soul, eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. Srila Prabhupada gave Jadurani a photograph of himself to paint from, taken in India. Before he had come to America, it showed him grave and standing very straight against a blank white wall. Oh, Swamiji, Jadurani remarked, you look so unhappy here. No, he said thoughtfully, stretching out the sound of the word. No, that is not unhappy. That was a moment of ecstasy. Prabhupada drew Jadurani's attention to a picture on his wall. Mother Yashoda was rebuking her son, Krishna, for stealing butter. While in the distance, two of Krishna's friends were hiding behind a tree, laughing. Prabhupada asked, do you think that Krishna would let himself get caught and his friends get away? She looked at the picture again. By the light of Swamiji's word, she could see that Krishna's friend would also soon be caught. She suddenly felt she was there in Vrindavan. After and Jadurani, the devotees visiting from New York had to return to their duties. Although Prabhupada had been resting, he awoke just as they were about to depart. So they came into his room. In a faint voice, Prabhupada spoke a few words from his bed. Then he sat up and Gaur Sundar began to massage him. People who think God is dead are crazy, Prabhupada said. Although no one had introduced the subject for Prabhupada, preaching about Krishna was always apropos. His voice picked up volume as he denounced the atheists. Just like if I go to the doctor, if he checks my heart and it is beating well, and if he checks my blood pressure, and if it is going on and my breathing is there, and after observing all the symptoms of life, if I ask him, so doctor, what is the condition? that if the doctor says, my dear sir, you are dead, if this is not a crazy diagnosis, Gaur Sundara, still massaging, glanced wide-eyed at the others. Prabhupada was now speaking in a loud, forceful voice, as if addressing a large audience instead of a few visitors in his sick room. Similarly, just see the signs of life in this universe. The sun is rising just on time. The planets are moving in their orbits. There are so many signs of life, and the universe is God's body, and yet they are seeing all the symptoms and declaring God is that. It is not foolishness. These are rascals. I challenge them, simply rascals. A few soft words had become half an hour of strong, emphatic speech meant to move the audience against all kinds of atheistic theorists. Although Kirtanananda had at first cautioned Swamiji, reminding him about his health, Swamiji had dismissed the caution by saying, "That's all right." But now he was exhausted and had to lie back down. The devotees had seen Swamiji immediately use up whatever energy he had gained from his afternoon's rest. Although they admired how he was using everything for Krishna, they were also fearful, but they were helpless to restrain him. They were even implicated. They wanted to hear him. When Sattva, Rupa, and Jadurani returned to New York, Brahmananda had them tell the others about Swamiji. Sattva Rupa told how he had slept in the room with Swamiji and had felt that this nearness to Swamiji was very auspicious. He had felt light and peaceful and close to Krishna all night. Sattva Rupa and Jadurani told about sitting on the beach with Swamiji and his talking about everything being conscious in Krishna Loka. And they told how Swamiji had sat up in bed and had used his energy preaching, showing them that they should also use everything to the service of Krishna. Brahmananda beamed at the other devotees. Just look, by your talking about Swamiji, everything is feeling blissful. Prabhupada stayed in Long Beach for 3 weeks. But when Sri Krishna Pandit wrote saying that he couldn't arrange for an Ayurvedic doctor to come America, Prabhupada began to think more seriously about going back to India. In India, he could get sunshine and Ayurvedic treatment, but these plans would vary from one day to another. San Francisco, Montreal, India, New York. He told Kirtanananda to inform the devotees in San Francisco that if they held a Rath Yatra festival, he would come. At the end of June, he returned to 26 2nd Avenue and to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor was surprised at Swamiji's recovery and had no objection to his flying to San Francisco. So in search of sunny skies and eager to guide his followers in performing the first Rath Yatra, Prabhupada had airline tickets booked for himself and Kirtanananda to San Francisco, New Jagannath Puri. Chapter 26, Swamiji's departure. At the San Francisco airport, Prabhupada smiled but said little as the devotee greeted him with flowers and kirtana. It was different this time. He walked straight ahead with the aid of a cane. Jayananda was waiting with his station wagon to drive Prabhupada to the private house they had rented north of the city at Stinson Beach. But first, Prabhupada said he wanted to visit the San Francisco Radhakrishna temple. Jayananda drove to 518 Frederick Street. Prabhupada got out of the car and entered the small storefront, which was filled with waiting devotees and guests. He bowed before the smiling Jagannath deities and without speaking a word, left the room, returned to the car and departed for Stinson Beach. The ride up through The seaside cliffs was so winding and climbing that Prabhupada became nauseated. And even laying down in the back seat and having Jayananda drive slower didn't help much. Kirtanananda realized that it would be too difficult for Prabhupada to visit the San Francisco temple from Stinson Beach, but maybe that would be just as well. He could spend all of his time recuperating. It was a modern single-story, six-room house with a Japanese roof. A sign out front read Paradisio. Srila Prabhupada noticed in the front yard, amidst fashionable lawn furniture, a statue of Lord Buddha, a garden ornament. When Prabhupada entered the house, he found Mukunda and his wife Janaki waiting for him. They bowed down and Janaki wept in happiness. Prabhupada smiled but kept walking slowly and silently through the house. The large living room overlooking the Pacific Ocean was decorated with some of Jadurani's paintings of Lord Vishnu, Radha, and Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya, as well as with Indian prints of Jagannath Puri. Prabhupada's bedroom, also facing the ocean, had sliding windows. On the wall was a portrait of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and a painting of Radha Krishna. Prabhupada smiled and said the paintings were very nice. The devotees agreed that Kirtanananda and Upendra would stay and serve Swamiji. They wanted Swamiji's stay to be peaceful so that his health could improve. That night, Srila Prabhupada felt pain in his heart and couldn't sleep. And he didn't rise early for translating. At 5 a.m., Kirtanananda came in and opened the window slightly so Prabhupada could receive the soft ocean breeze. Prabhupada sat up in his bed chanting his japa and gazing at the feet of Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani. A mountain range to the east blocked the morning sun. Ever since Prabhupada's stroke, Kirtanananda had been regularly massaging Prabhupada's morning and evening. Kirtanananda would rub Prabhupada's head vigorously and then sit behind him and massage his back. Next, he would massage Prabhupada's chest, his arm, and his legs. The complete massage lasting sometimes more than an hour. Since leaving the hospital, Prabhupada had also been taking daily morning walk, even while on the Lower East Side. And this morning, he went down for a walk on the beach, accompanied by Kirtanananda and Upendra. As Prabhupada walked on the beach, he pointed his cane towards some bubbles in the sand. Just see, he said, there are living entities everywhere. There is no place without living entities. And yet they say there is no life on the moon. The beach was cliffs where the waves crashed powerfully like thunder. You hear this sound? Srila Prabhupada asked. This is an echo of the gopis' heartbeats when they are feeling separation from Krishna. He walked for an hour until these two young servants were both tired. Do I tire you walking? He laughed. This walking and massaging are saving my life from day to day. Then he continued walking. By 11 o'clock, the sun finally appeared over the mountains and through the clouds. Srila Prabhupada, his head wrapped with a towel, sat in a folding chair on the beach, taking in the sunshine. He kept saying he needed more sun. After lunch, the sky was again overcast. In the evening, Prabhupada called Kirtanananda and Upendra into a large living room and led them in a subdued kirtan, singing Hare Krishna and Govinda Jaya Jaya. He stood and led them in a large circle around the room. He would stop before the picture of Krishna, bow slightly with folded palms, turn around, and then continue in the circle. On July 8, after Prabhupada had been at Paradisio for 2 days, Shyam Sundar and Mukunda drove up from San Francisco The next day was to be Rath Yatra, and Shyam Sundar and Mukunda, the first devotees to visit Prabhupada since his arrival at Stinson Beach, told Prabhupada all about the festival preparations. Of course, the whole festival had been Prabhupada's idea, but the devotees in San Francisco were trying to do exactly as he had asked. Srila Prabhupada had first gotten the idea for the festival while looking out the windows of his room about Frederick Street, noticing flatbed trucks passing below. He thought of putting Jagannath deities on the back of such a truck and conducting an American-style Rath Yatra festival. He had even sketched a truck with a four-pillared canopy on the back and decorated with flags, bells, and flower garlands. And he had called in Shyam Sundara, make me this card for Rath Yatra. Now ready and sitting outside the temple of Frederick Street was the card. A yellow Hertz rental truck, compliments of the diggers, and complete with 5-foot columns and a pyramidal cloth canopy. Sitting with Prabhupada on the beach, Mukunda told how all the devotees were working with great enthusiasm and how the hippies in Hyde Ashbury were talking about the Jagannath parade that would take place in the next day. The devotees had tried to route the parade through Golden Gate Park, but the police department would only give permission for them to go south down Frederick Street to the sea. Mukunda said the devotees planned to have Jagannath under the canopy facing the right side of the truck, Subhadra facing the rear, and Balarama facing the left side. He wanted to know if that was all right. Actually, Prabhupada said the deity should ride in separate carts, pulled with ropes by the crowd through the streets. Maybe that could happen in future years. Do it nicely, he cautioned them. And don't hurry it up. The devotee should drive the truck slowly through the streets down to the beach, and there should be constant kirtan. Mukunda and Shyam Sundar glorified Jayananda. He drove all around San Francisco getting donations of fruits and flowers, found people to help decorate the cart, installed the sound system on the truck, and distributed posters in the stores. He was tireless and his enthusiasm was inspiring everyone else to take part. The women had been cooking chapatis all day, so there should be thousands to give away to the crowd. The devotees had prepared hundreds of Hare Krishna Radha Rath Yatra festival balloons to release on the streets as the parade began. When the devotees asked what else they should do, Prabhupada said that this was all a procession, prasadam distribution, kirtana. The people should get a chance to see Lord Jagannath and chant Hare Krishna. There should be chanting and dancing in front of the cart throughout the procession. But do everything nicely, Prabhupada said. Do it as well as you can, as Lord Jagannath will be satisfied. The next day, in the quiet afternoon, Prabhupada was sitting in the living room, chanting on his beads. Upendra was with him, and Kirtanananda was in the kitchen cooking a feast. Suddenly, Prabhupada heard the familiar ringing of cymbals, and he became very happy. His eyes widening, looking outside, he saw the Rath Yatra truck with Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram, and dozens of devotees and hippies eager to see him. He went out to greet them and had them bring the deities inside and set them on top of the upright piano. Devotees and guests followed, filling the large living room. Smiling, Prabhupada embraced some of the men, while others made obeisances at his feet. Some devotees helped Kirtanananda in the kitchen and get ready to distribute the large feast he had prepared. Others reported on the success of Rath Yatra festival. It was great. It was wonderful. It was beautiful day, they said. And Prabhupada listened, moved by his disciples' description of the celebration. Many hippies had joined the large procession. Mukunda, Haridas, Haigriva, and some of the women had been on the cart, and the instruments, including Yamuna's playing on the harmonium, had all been amplified. Everyone in the streets had liked it. The police motor carts had tried to hurry the devotees, but so many people had crowded in the front that the parade had been obliged to go slowly, just as Swamiji had asked. Subala had danced wildly the whole time, and Jayananda had been jumping up and down, playing kartalas. From the truck, some of the women had handed out cut orange apples and bananas, and others had thrown flowers. The crowd had loved it. Sham Sundara told how they had been going up a steep hill. Sham Sundara had been driving with his dog Ralph beside him on the front seat. When the truck had installed, he had tried to start the engine but couldn't. Then the brakes wouldn't hold. The truck began rolling backward downhill. Finally, he had managed to stop, but when he had tried to go forward, the engine had stalled and the truck had rolled backwards. Again, he would get it started. The truck would go forward, then stall, then roll backwards. Everyone had been in anxiety. At last, the truck had started forward and the procession had continued all the way to the beach. Hare Krishna.